Hello students, as we all are in the learning process of various chromatography techniques, today let us deal with ion exchange chromatography. As we have seen in our previous classes about all the three different techniques, I suppose we have completed three different chromatography techniques. Those were TLC, that is thin layer chromatography, paper chromatography, and column chromatography. So today let us deal with this ion exchange chromatography. Now, what is ion exchange chromatography? As in the name itself, it is nothing but the exchange of ions. So let us see the definition of ion exchange chromatography first. So it is a process that allows the separation of ions and polar molecules based on their affinity to the ion exchanger. Now in this ion exchange chromatography, we will be using ion exchanger. This is very important. Ion exchanger is used, which is acting as the stationary phase. Now how the separation is being taken place is based on their affinity to the ion exchanger. Now this ion exchanger will have that is the charges which are there present on it. Now those charged ions will be exchanged with that of the sample ions. So mainly this technique is used for the separation of ions and polar molecules. Now this technique is mainly used for separation of proteins, nucleotides and amino acids. So all these are actually biological fluids which are present in the body, and they can be easily separated by ion exchange chromatography because they are charged compounds also. Now in this we use, as I said, ion exchanger is used as the stationary phase, and the mobile phase what we use is a buffer solution. It may be acidic or basic, or we can, that is, we can change the pH of this buffer solution, which is acting as the mobile phase. Now what is the principle involved in this type of technique? So as I said, the principle is mainly on the affinity between the ion exchanger as well as the sample. So the exchange of ions is the basic principle in this type of chromatography. So what we are doing, we are exchanging the ions. So between the stationary phase, that is the stationary phase is the charged one because we are using ion exchanger as the stationary phase. So it is a charged stationary phase and the analyte. Analyte here is the sample. So the exchange takes place between the charged stationary phase and the sample. Now these stationary phases are of two types. They are anionic exchangers and cationic exchangers. So first we'll see about the anion exchangers. So in the name itself, it is helping in the exchange of anions. What are anions? They are negatively charged ions. Now here you can see this is a resin. Okay, so anion exchangers, they are actually positively charged exchanger. So here you can see N plus R3. Okay, it is a tertiary amine. Three alkyl groups attached to nitrogen, which is carrying plus charge because it is also associated with Cl minus. Now the resin is having positive charge, which is N plus R3, and the counter ion which is attached to that resin is anion, which is the chloride ion. So these are positively charged exchanges actually, but the counter ion, the mobile counter ion is the chloride ion. This blue colored part are the chloride ions which are associated with the exchanger. Now they are acting as what happens here is they will get exchanged with the anions which are present in the sample. So as the mobile counter ion is negative charge, that is, it is an anion. So the name goes as anion exchangers. What are these anion exchanges we can use are tertiary amines. Tertiary amines are acting as strong anion exchangers. We can also have secondary amines which act as a weak anion exchanges. So anion exchanges, what they do is they exchange the anions because anions are the mobile counter ions which are present on them. These ions will be exchanged with that of the anions which are present in the sample. Then the other type of exchanges we have is cation exchanges. No, it is exactly opposite to that of anion exchanges. Now here in cationic exchanges, you can see that they are negatively charged exchanger, SO3 minus. It is a negative charged exchanger, but the mobile counter ion which is associated with it is Na plus, sodium ion. So this sodium ion, it is acting as a cation. So Na plus are exchanged with that of the cations which are present in the sample. Hence they are known as cation exchanges. Now what are the examples of cation exchanges are? We can take sulfonic acids, which are strong cation exchanges, and carboxylic acids also, which are acting as a weak cation exchanges. So depending upon the mobile counter ion which is present, we have two different types, anion exchanges and cation exchanges. Now in this picture, you can see the anion and cation exchange. So this is a stationary phase particle which is acting as anion exchanger. As I said, anion exchanger is nothing but positively charged, but the counter ion which is movable is negative charged. So whatever the negative charge was there on this, that is resin, it has been exchanged by another negative charge which is present in the sample. So this is how the exchange of ions takes place. Now even in this cation exchanger, the positive charge are the counter ions which are present, and they will be exchanged with the positive charge which are present on the sample. Now if we take a look at this equation, you will clearly understand about the technique here. Now as I said, a cation exchanger first will take. So it is RSO3 minus sulfonic group, which is having a counter ion which is Na plus. So Na plus is the cation which has to be exchanged. Okay. Now this is the sample molecule, charged molecule that has to be exchanged. Okay. Now it is having positive charge, nitrogen with positive charge. Now what happens? This cation will be exchanged with that of this counter ion. So as a result, what you will get is RSO3, which is associated with N plus H3R prime. So this part is being exchanged with that of sodium ions. So what happens ultimately? This sodium ion, which is the counter ion, is now free. So it is set free here, Na plus. Okay, the exchanged ion. So this is how exchange of ions takes place. Now in the next example, you can see anion exchanger, N minus, okay, quaternary amine, which is having Cl minus. Cl minus is the counter ion, which is an anion. Now it is when it is reacted with the carboxylate, alkyl carboxylate group. Now this is again COO minus, which is the anion. Now this anion will get exchanged with that of the Cl minus. So you can see it is being associated with the nitrogen here, whereas Cl minus is being displaced. That is, it has been exchanged from the resin. So this is how the process actually goes in the ion exchange chromatography technique. Now in this diagram also, it is clearly visible. See, this is the column. Here we have taken two examples at a time, anion exchanges and cation exchange. Now see, this is anion exchange, a resin. This is a positively charged resin. But what are the counter ions which are present? The blue colored one, they are negative. So these negative ion, counter ions have to be exchanged with the sample ions. Now in the next diagram, you can see the sample is having positive, this is positive ion, and the red colored is the negative ion. So as the sample is having positive and negative ions, now as I said, this negative ions, the counter ions which are present, that is the blue colored, will get exchanged with that of the anions which are present in the sample. So the what are the anions which are present in the sample? Those are the red colored part. Okay, so you can see the blue colored anion is being replaced now by the red colored anion. This red colored anion is present in the sample. So this is how the ions are getting exchanged and they are getting adsorbed onto the resin. Okay, so here adsorption is taking place onto the resin. Now what happens, these positive charged ions which are present in the sample, they are going, that is, they will be eluted out first because this negative charged are held onto the ion exchanger. So the positive charged ions will be eluted out first. Now after some time, what we have to do is we need to remove this negative ion of the sample also. So for that, what we have to do is we have to change the pH of the mobile phase. That is the buffer pH we have to change. So by changing the buffer pH value, slowly this negative charge can also be replaced back with the negative ions which are present on the buffer. So that is nothing but sample desorption. So first thing is column equilibrium takes place, then sample adsorption, then sample desorption. So first the positive charged ions will be eluted out first, then comes the negative charged ions in the case of this anion exchange. Now when we go back to this cation exchange, it is opposite. Now here you can see these are the negative charged and which are having the positive charge. Yellow colored one is the cation, that is the counter ion which is present, and they have to be exchanged with the sample cations which are there in the sample. Now again, as I said, this green color is the positive charge and the red is the negative ion which is present in the sample. Now here in cation exchange, what happens? The yellow colored part is being exchanged with the green one because this is also a cation. So this is how all the green, that is the positive cations present in the sample, are being exchanged with the positive counter ions which are present in the cation exchanges. And the first eluted one will be the negative ions. So the red colored ions will be eluted out first. After that, we need sample desorption. So whatever this green colored part is there, we have to get back these ions also, that is the positive charge ions. So again, by changing the buffer pH, these positive charge cations will get dissolved from the exchanger and then it is being eluted out. So this is how the exchange of ions takes place. Now what are the various ion exchanges that we use are? So as I said, resins are generally used as ion exchanger, which are used for separation of small molecules. Now what are resins? The resins are nothing but they are three-dimensional network of polymeric chains. It is nothing but a polymer which is having cross linkages in it. And these cross linkages will contain some ionizable functional groups such as sulfonic group or tertiary amine group. So resins are nothing but the polymers which are cross-linked. So generally the resin what we take for ion exchange are the styrene and divinyl benzene. So the resin which is prepared from styrene and divinyl benzene is taken as the backbone of this resin onto which some of these functional groups will be attached. Then in the resins, we have natural resins and synthetic resins. So natural resins are cations, that is the cation resins. They are zeolites, clay, and the anion is dolomite. Synthetic resins, inorganic and organic resins. Then the ion gels, the second one is gels. Gels can also be used as ion exchanges. Now, these gels are mainly used for separation of large molecules like proteins and nucleic acids. Examples are, we can take cellulose and dextran ion exchanges. They are very helpful for the separation of proteins and nucleic acids. And the third one is inorganic exchanges. Now these inorganic exchanges, when do we use this? When the separation, whatever we are doing, when it is involved with some harsh chemical conditions. So harsh chemical conditions means when we are using high temperatures, high radiation levels, or strongly basic solutions or powerful oxidizing agents. So if we use such chemicals for the separation, then we will be using these type of resins which are inorganic exchanges. So generally we use resins as the ion exchanges. Then what are the common properties all these ion exchanges should follow is they are almost insoluble in water. They are insoluble in water as well as organic solvents. So the organic solvents that we can take here are benzene, carbon tetrachloride, and ether. They are complex in nature. That is, they are polymeric. Just now I have told you that resin is nothing but a polymer. So it is a polymer which is made up of styrene and divinyl benzene. And they have active or counter ions. that will exchange reversibly with other ions in a surrounding solution without any substantial change in the material. So what does that mean is, so all these resins, all these ion exchanges should contain counter ions, as I have shown you, the anion exchanges, cation exchanges. So cation exchanges will be having generally Na plus, sodium plus ions, which are counter ions, which can be exchanged. So all these ion exchanges should have these counter ions, which can be exchanged with that of the ions which are present in the solution, but without change in the material. There won't be any change in the material what we have used. Now, what are the classification of ion exchange resins? So as I said, ion exchange resins are mainly two types. Those are anionic and cationic. Now, even in that, if we look at the nature of that exchanger, we have strongly acidic cationic exchanger as well as weakly acidic. The strongly acidic cationic exchangers, we can use our sulfonic acid groups. Okay, so sulfonic acid groups which are attached to styrene and divinyl benzene polymer. So the resin is here made up of styrene and divinyl benzene. So the backbone of that resin is made up of styrene and divinyl benzene. To that, these sulfonic groups will be attached. So that will act as a strongly acidic cationic exchanger. Then the next type is weakly acidic. So instead of sulfonic groups, suppose if we replace those by carboxylic acid group, okay, which are acting as a very weak acid cation exchanger. Then we also have strongly basic anionic exchanger. So instead of the sulfonic groups, cations, now if we are having positive charged groups, that is quaternary ammonium groups, if they are attached to the resin, it comes under the example of strongly basic anion exchanger. Then if we have polyalkyl amine groups which are attached to the resin, they will act as weakly basic anion exchanger. So depending upon the sample which we have to separate, we can select all these ion exchange resins. Now these are some of the examples of anion and cation exchanges. So here you can see strong anion exchanges will be having quaternary amine group, as I said. So it is trimethyl amino methyl, actually it should be. So it is short form is TAM. Then we can also take triethyl amino ethyl. This is triethyl amino ethyl. Short form of this is TEAE, which are acting as strong anion exchanges. The weak anion exchanges, amino ethyl, then diethyl amino ethyl. So this is diethyl amino ethyl, which stands for DEAE, is acting as weak anion exchanges. Then strong cation exchanges, as we have seen, sulfonic groups which are attached to the resin will act as strong cationic exchanges. So sulfur group, then sulfomethyl groups, short form is SM. Then we have weak cationic exchanges, carboxymethyl groups. So carboxylic group, when they are attached to the resin, they are acting as weak cation exchanges. So these are the examples you have to learn, because this is very important topic. What is the principle behind ion exchange chromatography and what are the various types of ion exchanges? So ion exchanges are mainly classified into two types, anionic and cationic, and under that again we can classify based on their strength, that is whether they are strong or weak, with some examples. Now as I said, resin, it is here we are showing an example of a resin. It is polystyrene resin. Now this is styrene, benzene, which is attached to vinyl group, CH double bond, CH2 is styrene. This is divinyl benzene, two vinyl groups at 1 and 4th position, which are attached to the benzene. Now, by polymerization of these styrene and divinyl benzene, this is the cross linkages polymer which is formed. Okay. So here you can see the para positions are almost free. So then we can easily incorporate some functional group at this position. Okay, if we want cationic exchange, we have to introduce that sulfur groups, or we can use quaternary amino groups. So in this way, we can prepare both the resins which are having, that is the resin which is made up of that is styrene and divinyl benzene. Then next is, what are the requirements for doing this ion exchange chromatography is, so what the main requirement of this is the column. Okay, we perform this ion exchange chromatography by using a column. We also do, actually we have two different techniques. One is batch technique, the other is column technique. So column technique we are discussing now. Column, this is the column which is made up of glass, stainless steel or polymers. And what we have to do is, we have to fill this column with the resin. So first thing is, as we have discussed in column chromatography also, here also the column should be, it is made up of glass, and at the bottom it is having a nozzle, okay, with a stopcock. Now what we have to do is, we have to pack the column. Now here the packing is always wet packing method we follow. So for this, what we have to do is, the resin whatever we select, first we have to prepare the slurry of that resin. Okay, so prepare that slurry and we have to fill it in the column. So before filling, what we have to do is, we have to place some glass wool at the bottom such that that resin will not get drained out. Okay, so place some glass wool at the bottom of this column here, and now we have to fill it with the slurry, that is the resin slurry. After that, next step will be application of the sample. Now after it is filled with the slurry, what we have to do is, you can easily tap it, and then again you can place some glass wool on it. Okay, so the solvent eluent, whatever we are taking, we have to first see that the eluent is placed on the resin also, because the resin will get dried up. So see that some of the resin is being covered by the eluent there. Then place some glass wool, and on the glass wool we have to place the sample. So that sample, whatever we are placing it, you use syringe or pipette to place the sample, and then on the sample again you can cover with the glass wool if you want. A cotton or a glass wool can be taken to cover the sample, because it will give a uniform layer which is in the column. Okay, now after that, what we have to do is, we have to take the mobile phase and then start pouring into the column. So that is the next step. So mobile phases, what we can select are the buffers, which are acidic or alkali. The stationary phase, as I said, the stationary phase is ion exchanger resin, which may be cationic or anionic exchanger. Then now what happens when you pour this mobile phase? When the mobile phase is made to flow into the column, it will help in the separation of the components. So the components will get separated. How they will get separated? Depending upon the affinity of the ion for the ion exchanges. Some ions will strongly bind to the ion exchanger, and some will bind very weak. So more strongly binded ion will elute slow. If the ion which is binded to the ion exchanger is very weak, if the affinity is weak, then that particular ion will be eluted out first. After the elution process, what we have to do is, we will be collecting all the fractions in a conical flask or a beaker, and then we have to do the analysis of the solute. So here the analysis of the solute can be made by spectrophotometry, flame photometry, polarography, or conductometry. Any of these techniques you can use for the analysis of the eluate. Now this is the instrument of ion exchange chromatography. So here you can see in this instrument, now this is the column, ion exchange column. Okay. Now these are the mobile phases or the buffers what we have used. The sample is placed here. So here two buffers are used. One is without salt, but the other one with the high salt. That is, we are changing the pH or the concentration of the buffers. Now these are, you can mix them also, both the buffers, and then it will give rise to another pH. So that is being run into the column, ion exchange column. Now here the separation will take place. So the ion which is weak, which is having weak affinity towards the ion exchanger will move fast. Then that is detected here. So after detecting, the whatever the fraction is coming out, that is being collected in the fraction collector. So we will be having series of collectors here. So there the all the fractions, whatever is eluted out, will be collected over there. Now the detector will show, suppose if you are using spectrophotometer, you will get a peak in this way. So these peaks will give information about the different types of components which are present, and the peak area under that peak will give the concentration of the sample. So this is how the ion exchange takes place. So we will be having resins, that is ion exchange resins, which are acting as the stationary phase, and these buffers are acting as the mobile phase. Now again you can see the working, how it is taking place. Here example shown is with cation exchanger. Now these are the Y minus, these are the counter ions, which are the cations which are present on cation exchanger resin. Now when the sample is having X plus ions, so these Y plus ions will be exchanged with that of X plus ions. So this is how exchange of ions is taking place. So exchange of Y plus with that of X plus, both are cations. Now again in this case you can see the sample having positive and negative ions. This is the flow of the solution. This is immobilized cation surface, that is the resin surface. Now all the negative ions will go and bind to the oppositely charged, that is positive ion. So in the next diagram you can see all the negative ions are being bonded to the positive ions, and whatever the positive ions which are there, they will not go and bind because they are having same charge, so they will get repelled, and these positive ions will be first eluted out. Okay, so later on what we need these negative ions also. So to get back these negative ions, we have to change the buffer. Separation of these ions can be brought up by changing the strength of the buffer. So for eluting this negative charge, you have to change the buffer strength. Thereby negative charged particles or the negative charged ions which are there, they will be collected later on. Now in this elution process, suppose in this is the column where we are having three components, three different bands you can see. Now this first band, it is more highly charged molecules are more tightly bound to the resin. So whenever we have some charged molecules, okay, more higher the charge, more will be the affinity towards the resin. Okay, so if all these three components are having different charges, so higher charged molecules will have more affinity towards the ion exchanger resin, and therefore it will travel slowly or it is eluted later. Now this blue colored one, it is moderately charged, so it is in between these two extremes. Then first thing is this one, which is having less charged molecules. They bind less strongly to the resin, and therefore they are eluted out first. Now this is another example of the same thing. So sample having positive and negative ions. So they are, when they are passed into the ion exchanger resin, okay, so the positive charge, it is what it is doing, all the negative ions are being attracted towards the positive charged resin, and all the other positive charge are removed first. So unbound molecules are washed away. All the positive charge are first washed away or they are eluted out first, and whatever the remaining negative charge, we have to elute it by changing the concentration or the strength of the buffer. Now this is an example where the proteins can be separated by using this ion exchange chromatography. So in proteins, we have negatively charged as well as positively charged proteins. So both, when they are added here as a sample in the column. So first, all the positive charged beads. So here they are first eluted out, and then later on the negative charged beads are proteins are eluted out. So in the first fraction, you can see only the buffer which is being collected. In the second fraction is nothing but only the positive charged are collected. Then comes again the buffer. Then after that, you will find only the negative charged proteins which are being collected. So all the negative charged proteins with salt solution. So what we are doing here, we are changing the pH of the buffer, and then we are eluting out all the negatively charged proteins. So whatever may be the ions, whatever may be the sample, this is the main principle behind it. Then we have, then we'll see the applications of ion exchange chromatography. So we have number of applications. So first thing is, as we have seen, it is used in the analysis of amino acids. So amino acids, we can use this technique for the separation of all these amino acids. So the amino acid, that is autoanalyzer, which is used in the analysis of amino acids, it works under this ion exchange principle. Then it is used for separation of many vitamins, other biological amines and organic acids and bases. Separation of similar ions from one another. So what does this mean? Suppose if we have similar ions such as same with all these three, lithium, sodium, potassium ions, which are unipositively charged. Now how to separate these ions? So all are positively charged. So what we need cation exchanger as the stationary phase. So this is the sample. The sample, when we are having lithium, sodium, potassium ions in it, for separating them, because they are positively charged, they are cations, we take cation exchanger as the stationary phase. And we have to run by using 0.1 normal HCl is used as the eluent, where we can separate all these ions one by one. We can also separate anions. Again, here if we have a mixture which is having chloride, bromide and iodide, so as they are anions, so the stationary phase what we have to select for this separation is basic anion exchanger. So this basic anion exchanger, where the anions will get exchanged on it, then the elution, for the elution we will be using sodium nitrate solution. So sodium nitrate solution is used as a eluent for the separation of these anions, that is chloride, bromide and iodide. And for the separation of cations such as lithium, sodium, potassium, we will be using HCl. So just by changing the concentration of this sodium nitrate, you can collect these anions at different rates. Then it is also used in the removal of interfering radicals. So in the estimation of, for example, if we are taking this one, estimation of calcium or barium ions. So we can estimate these ions with the help of oxalate or sulfate method, where phosphate ion is found to interfere. So what we can do is, we can do the separation or the estimation of this calcium or barium by using, as these are positively charged, isn't it? So what we need cation exchanger as the resin. So here we are taking sulfonic acid cationic exchanger, which is a very strong cation exchanger. So these calcium or barium ions will be exchanged with that of this sulfonic acid cationic exchanger. So they get exchanged with the H+ ions which are present on the cation exchanger, and then after collecting you can easily estimate the amount. Then it is also used for softening of hard water. This is very important again. As we know that hard water is nothing but it is hard due to the presence of calcium and magnesium ions. So mainly it is calcium and magnesium ions. It is hard, that is it does not give lather with the soap, whereas soft water will give lather with the soap. So how to convert this hard water into a soft water? So for this The again very important technique what we are using daily is ion exchange chromatography. So what we are doing in this case is, see here in this equation you can see, so calcium and magnesium we have to remove. So how to remove this? As they are cations, what we require? We require a cationic resin. Okay, so this is cation exchange resin where sodium ions will be there as the counter exchange ions. So in the hard water, now this R stands for resin here. So the resin which is having sodium ions as the counter ions. Now these sodium ions, when they are mixed with this hard water which is having calcium, or else you can take magnesium here. So these calcium ions will get exchanged with the sodium ions. Therefore, you will get all the calcium ions which are present in the hard water. Now they are binded to the resin, and this sodium ion is free. So thereby what we have done, we have removed this calcium ion, because all this calcium or the magnesium which is present in the hard water is now binded to the resin, and in the water you will be left over with sodium ions. In this way we can convert hard water into soft water. Then another important thing is, we can also, it is the same technique can also be used in demineralization of water. That is where we can remove all the minerals by using this technique. So you can remove cations as well as anions. It is also used in the separation of lanthanides. So mixture of lanthanides, if you want to separate, again we can do this technique. Then separation of actinides also. So these are all the important applications of ion exchange chromatography. So we have seen that is in ion exchange chromatography, the basic principle is about the exchange of ions. So this exchange of ions takes place between the ions which are present in the sample as well as the stationary phase. So because of this exchange of ions, the separation is taking place. And the mobile phase used is the buffer solution. You can change the strength of the buffer solution depending upon the ions what we have to separate. And we have seen different types of exchanges, ion exchanges, that is cationic and anionic exchanges. Then how to go through the technique, that is how to fill the column and then load the sample, everything. After that, we have seen some of its applications also. So hope you have understood the topic very well. Thank you, students. Thank you for watching.